Hey guys, today I'm going to talk to you about my closure, my sleek closure. I get so many questions on this, so I'm just going to explain to you. I'm just going to do a demo of what I do once the closure's actually attached. I'm not going to go through the whole, I'm not going to show you the video of me stitching the whole thing because it takes so long. I've attempted to do this so many times, and the truth is it is trial and error for me. For me, it's about the shape of the hair. It's really important for me, and that's what takes me the longest. Sometimes I'll have the wig already done, I'll try it and I'll be like, I don't like this shape at all, and have to redo the whole thing or redo half of it or whatever, and I can't film that way. It's just really difficult. So basically I just make a 3/4 wig is what I do, and then I just leave a gap for the closure. So all it is you get a wig cap, stitch, 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 like you would a normal weave. Then you stop here. Then you put the closure on. If you do your hair all the way up to here and then put the closure, it might be too tight or it might not fit on properly or whatever. The thing I'd advise is to get the closure in position before you cut it. Now the thing I think is, my personal thing is, these closures, the sleek closures, only really look good with a kind of wig cap. I don't think it works as well for a weave, because when you sew it directly onto your head, it doesn't really have it doesn't look as flat as you may want it to. It doesn't look like this. It's not going to look like that. It's kind of just going to look woven on, unless you get a really good hairdresser to do it. So I'd recommend making a 3/4 wig and then putting it on. Make sure when you do it, you do the closure before you finish the rest of the hair, just so you can get the shape right. You might remember my other video where I was talking about my hair info, and I'll put, if you haven't seen it, I'll put the information, I'll put either the link in the description box, or I'll put it as a video response. The main questions were how do I get it so flat to my head, and how do I get it to look so realistic? So I'm going to show you how I do that. So you just use a wig cap. I'm going to just do a quick sketch right now and show you what I mean. Okay, so this is the head. Okay, so I'm just drawing a cap on. So this is the cap. You weave onto the cap in a zigzag motion. So just like this. But then you stop. I always stop halfway through, and then I attach the closure. I do this because if you kind of do the whole head of weave and then put the closure on top, you don't know how it's going to fit on. So it's best, if you want to get the shape right, it's best to stop weaving, put the closure on, and then weave around the closure, like continue weaving around the closure. So I just kind of put it in place and then I cut around it. So you want to make sure that it's firm, tight and secure. There's no saggy bits, there's no bits. It's just make sure that it's fully stretched, not too stretched, but just tightly attached. Okay, so this is what it looks like underneath once you've stitched it on. This is what it looks like when you put it on without doing anything extra. This is what it looks like. I don't think it looks that realistic. It looks okay. I like to do a bit more to it, so it goes from looking like this to this. And to me that looks a lot more realistic, and it also helps it to stay closer to the head. So I'm going to show you how to do it. Basically, I just start taking out strands of the hair from the parting. I try and broaden the part a bit. Don't over pluck the hairs, but make sure that you do it sporadically so that the gaps are not so even. So take out more chunks in some areas than others, but just make sure you don't overdo it, because you don't want to look like you're balding. Okay, so I do it till it looks like this. Okay, so now I've done that. Now you need to cut the front bit. Now there is like a piece of plastic, it's a plastic part in the front of it. You want to cut this as close to the hairline as possible without cutting the hairs, because all those stray hairs are what help to make it look more realistic. I was using blunt scissors here. Just make sure you use sharp scissors so it's a lot easier. This was a lot more awkward for me because the scissors were so blunt. Okay, so I'm cutting along that plastic bit, making sure I've got all the hair out the way. And I cut it really close to the lace or the net or whatever that is. But as you can see, you can still see a bit of the plastic. You can still see that if that was on my head, it would be showing. That bit of plastic would be showing at the top. You know, you can still see that there is something there. You can still see the plastic, you can still see a bit of the lace, and I don't, you know, it obviously doesn't look very nice. So what I like to do is cut it a bit lower. Now that means cutting into the lace area, but I think it looks a lot more realistic when I do that. So I'm cutting the plastic a bit lower, still making sure I don't get the hairs. I've got to make sure that I don't cut any of the hairs, but I'm going as low as I possibly can. You can also see that I've added a bit of foundation underneath the lace just to make it look slightly more like flesh colour. I tend to not put too much foundation on just because I want it to look real. Your scalp is usually lighter or a different colour to your head anyway, so it works. Okay, so now I've cut into the lace, and you can see that it's started to fray a bit. It is fraying, and it is going to fray a bit more, but for me it's not a problem because the closure is not going to completely be ruined unless you overcut. Make sure you don't cut too much, and when it starts to fray, I actually think it helps to look a bit better. So what I do next is that I just spray on some heat protectant, and I just heat up my straighteners to about 170 degrees, and I just keep tapping that on. So I pinch the tongs together, then I release, because you don't want to melt the plastic. You just want to flatten the hair so it looks all nice and realistic. Okay, so once I've done that, it's all flat. Okay, so now this is the finished look. So that is basically how I do it. So you can see that it looks completely flat, and it's actually, because I've plucked the hairs away, it's made it look even more realistic. And because I cut into the plastic, I can raise my head and you still won't see the bits of the closure. It all just looks like it's attached to my head. Okay, so I hope that's been helpful for you and answered your questions. All the other details on the closure are in the description box. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!